Hello, and welcome to What We've Learned, episode 9. So, Shane, we're here as ever, and this week we're going to talk about, well, I think, customer experience.
Yeah, we are, Steve, and very relevant and appropriate because this week for me has been all about doing a training and delivering training on customer experience. But the reason I'm particularly excited about the two guest speakers that we've got with us today is that actually, what does customer experience mean in the crisis? What does it mean for all of us? And also a trend that was picked up by Forbes at the beginning of the year about the two biggest technologies that are going to impact on customer experience.
Interesting. And yes, technology, it's important to say, is part of this, and I'm sure it will come out throughout this episode, but it's the human element as well. We can't just lean on technology to give us that experience. It's perhaps marrying the two together.
Absolutely. And I think that's where companies are either doing it brilliantly or getting it very wrong. And in fact, that Forbes research that I referred to stated that the single biggest tech, along with the Internet of Things, that they believed, and this was back in January, really before COVID hit, that was going to make the biggest impact on customer experience this year was chat.
Interesting. Which seems a logical place to start with our friend Joe Bush then, I guess. So Joe Bush is the managing director of the Chat Shop, and they look after experts on online chat. But broader than that is Joe's experience base. And I think, Shane, before I introduce him, what's also interesting in what you've just said is that actually we can't just lean on the technology. We can't just lean on the human. It's the blend together, as we've said. But right now, because it's scarcer traffic, we can't have the same quantity and quality of traffic. We've got to think really hard about converting it. And when I chatted to Joe earlier in the week, he made some really interesting points around we might focus on the conversion, but what about those that don't convert? And lots of other useful things. Lots from Joe, but I kicked him off by saying, well, what's his advice when it comes to try and improve that customer experience, particularly when it comes to the web?
So generally, I would suggest mapping out that customer experience journey. So from the point that they are first interacting with your business through to the last, and understanding where you're potentially letting people down or where there's kind of areas to boost things. At the moment, the things that I've seen in a lot of other businesses is the online or offline customer experience is the one which falls as a last priority. And so if you can look at what methodologies or technologies there are, or equally partners which are out there which could potentially help you to help boost up those areas. If you can focus on customer experience now, your customers are going to remember it in the future. And across different markets, they're getting poor customer experiences, and so you can really separate yourself from your competitors and turn your customers into advocates and repeat customers by delivering an awesome customer experience.
Yeah, it's a really nice point, isn't it? Is that there is everywhere I've been of late in conversation, there's a lot of fear of, we mustn't sell right now if it's not appropriate. But your point is that actually, if you get that technology and that process right, then you might not sell, but you're setting yourself up with that loyalty or that advocacy for down the line. When things do return to normal, they're going to remember you and remember what you did that was positive, that's going to stand you in good stead in months and years to come.
Yeah. I mean, if you can't sell, what can you do? Everyone's probably had far too many emails saying in this unprecedented time and the new normal and coronavirus. So we've got to do something. There's no point standing still. So why not look at this as an opportunity to build new connections and deliver the very best customer experience, even if that is not quite what you were hoping to do because you're so busy for some reason or another.
Yeah, it's a good point around busy. Actually, it's something that Shane and I have spoken about in the past. Is that this is a great chance for the tasks that you wouldn't normally do. And as you said, your customer experience journey mapping, we probably know we should do more regularly than we do in organisations, but we don't always allow time for it. It sounds from what you've said is that it's vital that you're doing this. A, if you haven't got one, but B, perhaps any customer journey maps you had are out of date because the way things have suddenly changed on us.
And for me, I think the area which people often forget is they focus too much on the customers which do buy and not enough on the customers which don't buy. So if you spend some time asking yourself, well, we've had 100,000 visitors to our site, less than 2% have bought, what happened to that other 98%? And so running kind of customer satisfaction surveys after they've bought is great, and it gives you some really, really good insights. But what about that other 98% which had intention to potentially buy from you but didn't? And that really is the biggest opportunity to get a return or get some semblance of growth in this current period, is by focusing on increasing conversion rather than pumping more traffic necessarily into your online presence.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. It's very easy to forget the 98. You're so focused on high-fiving that you've got 2 out of the 100, that the 98 that, if you like, if it was the real world, came into your store, wandered around, and then you just walk back out again. In practical terms, Joe, then, if people do want to look at that 98, they're not missing out on the opportunity that's already there, that's visiting them. Where does technology or where does process play a part? What can people do to try and focus on gathering more of those 98 before they disappear?
I mean, there's so many different techniques. I guess you've got to ask yourself, is your marketing finding the right people to come through to the website, and does your product match what they're looking for? How well are you if kind of conveying the product market fit in your messaging? It kind of is what you're offering kind of good value for what you get? And by good value, I don't necessarily mean is it cheap, but at that price point, is it a competitive product based on what else is out there in the market? People nowadays aren't just thinking about, does this product fit my needs? They're also thinking about everything else which goes around it. Can I trust this brand? Do they have the same kind of moral compass as me? How likely am I going to be able to get some customer experience, some customer service afterwards if things go wrong?
So it sounds like it's almost the objection handling. If we could rummage through the crystal ball and know, well, these are the reasons why people have bounced off the site, because it didn't satisfy, it didn't answer the questions, it didn't give them the confidence, that trust, whatever it might be. I mean, this is why I was particularly keen to talk to you, is because for me at least, and I'm not experienced on this compared to yourself, is that's where something like that chat technology, if it's put in at the right place on the site, might just be that equivalent to somebody being by the door that can ask politely, is there anything I can help with today, sir, madam?
People, when they're kind of unguarded, they speak their mind far more.
Yep.
And the way we've generally approached chat is we're not, even though we create sales, we don't sell. We just have a conversation and engage with them on a personal level and kind of break down barriers and add a human face to the brand. Much like some brilliant kind of more face-to-face interactions that you might have. And in doing that, people just speak their mind, and they'll say things in a completely different way to if you'd kind of asked them to fill out a survey or whatever else, just as part of the dialogue. And from that, you can really nicely understand their intents, their priorities, who else they're evaluating alongside you, where they are in the buying process, and also their potential objections. And so if you look at every conversation, not necessarily as a opportunity to sell or not, but also an opportunity to learn and build that back in. And likewise, the sorts of questions they're asking, if everyone's asking about the dimensions of a particular product or the contract length of a particular service, you can build that into your messaging on the website, so it can become a continuous improvement process. One thing I will say, though, is in most organizations, the people handling the customer contact are over here, the people handling the marketing and the website are over there, and there's a big disconnect between the two departments of the business. And
so you can get that almost
together,
silo effect then, Joe, that actually you're gathering all that great insight, but it's not going to the place in the business that needs it to try and act upon it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't always recognize the value in that data, and it's qualitative, which means it's very hard to dig through and find what you're looking for. There's also a silo effect, and they're not necessarily talking or engaging about exactly that.
But there's an interesting, so it's quite an introspective aspect. That answer is that helps, as we talked about with this question, was around productivity. But what you've also made a case for, which is great, is the experience. Is that almost it feels like if you get this technology right, it gives you an empathy at scale. So the ability for somebody to lower those barriers, as you say, through technology that gathers input for you, which as long as you say, you can process, is very helpful. But even if you don't, it may leave that slightly disgruntled or objection holding customer or prospect that they may go from the site, but they may well come back because that technology has just got them at the right time and given them the reassurance that you are the organization to come back to, even if they don't convert immediately.
Yeah. Technology is the vehicle or the mechanism. The big difference maker between maybe matching your competitors and really beating them is by really thinking about how you apply that technology and who you've got running that technology and who's looking at how can we continuously improve this across every element of that part of the business. In the chat world, often people see it as, we place the script on the website and get a couple of our team to sit and answer chats, and it's a tick in the box and job done. Where in reality is there are so many different opportunities to really extract the most value, both for the business but also for the customer, by looking at every element of that service delivery model and really optimizing it to making sure you're talking to the right people at the right time with the right messaging, and also having a bit of a driving seat in the conversation, so that someone doesn't ask you a question, you respond, and then they go away, but you engage them like you would if you were in a face-to-face interaction with them, or at least you should be.
What really resonated from me listening to Joe was that reminder about your non-responders, your non-engaged, that 98%. In the old days of direct mail, we used to spend a lot of time looking at those that didn't convert because there was more data on it, quite simply. And that's true as much today as it was then. And I really love the fact, I think that Joe explains very practically how chat can really help a business today accelerate the sales pipeline and understand their customers better too.
Yeah, again, Shane, I think it's back to that blend of human and technology. Just because you can put the technology in, even if just your website in place, you may lose people, and that 98% or whatever the number is of people that aren't converting, sometimes the reasons, as Joe referenced and we all know, sometimes the reasons they've not converted are very simple ones. So if you can inject that person into the process via chat, and whether that's automated or human chat or some other way of a customer being nudged along, that's often what's missing rather than whole scale changes.
Absolutely. And I think at the moment, particularly that pace of change, again, picking up the point, we want answers fast and quickly, instant responsive, going back to the Google research into the 0 moment of truth, what happens when you land on a company's website? Do you get what you're expecting?
Yeah, funny enough, it reminds me of an Economist report back in about 2002 when I was client side. Where a very large report on e-commerce that my boss, the sales director of a tech company, brought to me and the rest of the board to try and help the case he and I were making for investment in the web. And the statement on that Economist report that I'll never forget was, your website is a paradigm of your organization. And that statement alone really helped us change direction in that company to convince people to say, look, what is it like when you go on the website? Is it clunky? Is it difficult to navigate? Is that a reflection of us as an organization? Yes or no? Well, certainly that's what those users of that website may well feel if it's their only or first interaction. So it's been important for a long time, but certainly, perhaps back to my point before, Joe, traffic's even more precious right now. We've got to convert as much as we can because times are tough.
Yeah, and I think this is where the times are tough, and again, how do you humanize your website? I think that's something. It's great tech, but you can have an amazing copy and all the rest of it, but how can you be even more personal and relevant to your audiences today?
Yeah, that's another balance, isn't it? It's that technology and human together. Just because you can use the tech, just because you've got the humans, you've got to get them in at the right stages. And that leads us on quite neatly to our next guest, which is Kirsty Dawe. So Kirsty, fascinating, really experienced B2B marketer and a very passionate one. As you know, Shane, and others may do, she was heavily involved and led really B2B, a well-respected and awarded agency in B2B for a long time. But she's very recently, this year, just become managing director of Webio, who are around web personalisation, as we'll talk about. But we just started chatting on that very subject, Shane. How have things been, and how, when it comes to sales marketing, do you marry the two together, technology and humans, in changeable times?
I always enjoy chatting to Kirsty, and I'm just very excited that we have a UK tech company, Webio, that is now run by a female business leader.
Absolutely, and an award-winning one as well, as I'm sure we'll come back to after we've heard from Kirsty.
So obviously across both businesses and really in our client base, as you would expect, we saw traffic change a lot, especially in March and early April. During that time, clients were seeing, and us were seeing, a shift away from perhaps prospects, acquisition, and new business website visitors, more towards customers. So there was definitely that need during that time to support customers. So we really drilled into that in Webio, and looked at what we were doing to answer the questions that our customers might have, not during this time. So not just hey, COVID-19, we're here to support you, but really thinking about what content, information they would find useful during that time. So there was definitely that change. And what was also interesting during that time was in some of our clients, actually, the traffic was changing in a different way. So different geographies were being supported, where perhaps they weren't affected in the same way by lockdown. And everybody was just looking at, okay, what can we see in terms of who's on our site at the moment? And we obviously use tools like Lead Forensics, and we actually use a tool called SimilarWeb, which supports our acquisition efforts in terms of looking at client traffic. And then, we're able to use that to make some decisions about how we reach out to them. Moving on, in April and May, we've definitely seen that change. So if you think March was like a bit of a slump, I honestly believe that was everyone getting to grips with this new way of working, and panicking and saying, right, okay, I've got contracts, right, what am I going to do, who am I still working with, how can I leverage what I've already got to make the most about what I have right now? And that's why there was this big influx of customer visit levels. Now businesses are finding their flow with the new way of working. We are seeing those traffic volumes returning a bit more back to a normal state. And I was talking to one of our sales team has a client in the financial services sector who's supporting small businesses at the moment. Actually, for them, they're seeing a real spike in traffic. So I think, it's really important for businesses to look at that and how that's changing on a weekly basis, and ensure that their online presence now more than ever responds to that, because that's the only place that people can see you.
Yeah, it's such an obvious point, isn't it? And it's interesting, as you said, it's been that element of initial shock to the change, the very rapid change. And it sounds like what you're saying is we've kind of leveled out, not quite business as usual for sure, but rather than just being focused on keeping what we've got and customers and retention rather than new business, are we seeing a bit of a move back over the last few weeks into April, May and beyond, that people are beginning to think about doing new business? It's okay to attract in people that we were attracting before, or perhaps, as you said, those new markets.
Yeah, I definitely think that, a lot of that is being driven by businesses having more comfort around what's happening now. Like, we can see change, and we can see that there is, at least some sort of plan in place to get us to a level of normality, or we found our way of normality. And part of that is, right, how are we going to drive business? And, we've benefited in Webio, particularly only because of everyone buying in the digital arena. So everyone is thinking, okay, how can I harness my website better? How can I make sure that is the one place where I'm serving the very best experience? But there is absolutely appetite out there for the new. And, how can we do this better? I mean, I will say in our own business, we bought 3 pieces of software in April. So,
Okay.
we're.
I hope software salespeople aren't listening in too readily to that, Kirsty.
We're done with that
good.
now. No more. But, you've got to be forward thinking, or else you just become paralyzed. So it's about looking at what you've got and what is within your control and what you can do something about. And that's where businesses have to be with, their customers, their prospects, and, the experience that they're getting online.
Yeah, that word experience you've used a few times just then, and it's the slightly softer side that we mustn't forget. Of course, a business is under pressure to sell, to continue to keep business. From when it comes to the web, because it's become front and center for businesses that, as you said, may not have just relied on the web. They would have had more traditional sales and marketing routes. What's the learning in terms of how does one improve the experience, even if it doesn't convert, pounds and pence down the line? Any thoughts on just improving that experience for those that are going to come to find you?
Yeah, so I actually did a talk for one of our clients a few weeks ago for their resellers, and it got me thinking, and that now more than ever is a time for us as B2B marketers and organizations to think about the legacy that we're going to leave post this situation. And by that I mean, if it's not a time to sell, it's a time to help. And then that means pushing content and information to the front of your site that will support your customers during this time. And also, I know that everyone's saying that we as marketers have a great deal of time to do all this stuff now. If we do or if we don't, what we can do is we can find people within our team to support us in creating those hero pieces of content, perhaps a really great 10 times piece of content that we've always wanted to do, but that we know will really support and empower our clients. It's maybe not about our product or service, but something that they're really interested in and that will drive them during this time. Make sure all of that is really visible for them on the site, so that when they go on, they say, well, do you know what? I couldn't buy that right then, but when I went on, I got stuff that helped me. And, I was I may be further down the journey as a direct result of that, or I was better informed. So I'm going to remember that business, and I'm going to come back to that business when I've got the opportunity to do something there. The other thing, sorry.
No, I was going to say, help is such a powerful word. Please, carry on.
Well, it was the other thing I was going to say is, from a help perspective, everybody's buying or researching or working at different times of the day now. And I know work never ends. And even before this situation, we were all working, early mornings, late evenings, etc. But now that actually is a key part of the working day. I can speak from personal experience that I'm up at 5:15 a.m. trying to get stuff done before the kids wake up, and then doing stuff when they're in bed. And if businesses can't support me during that time, that might be a challenge. So I actually think that making better use of, not just live chat, but AI-based live chat during that time can also help improve customer experience, just to support people who might have questions, queries, because, they're not always going to come in the 9 to 5 anymore. And we need to think about that as marketers.
Yeah, well, and also it's a really good point, because they may not have that resource. So if you were previously relying on humans to do that work for you, they may not be available. And you're right, it's such a good point, is that there's almost been a leveling out. A week lasts 7 days. During those 7 days, we work and we don't work, rather than that much more demarked, certainly in this part of the world, Monday to Friday and then the weekend. So yeah, it's a really good point to use that technology. And it sounds like that's almost an imperative, Kirsty. If you don't do that, you not forget the experience. That's just missing out on good practice that is vital right now to keep through this chasm, to make sure that you get to the other side. It's
so that, I do think as B2B marketers, unfortunately with the website, we aren't talking to our buyers in the way that they expect to be communicated with as consumers. Live chat being the perfect example. Those AI-based conversations, like we even talk to our clients on WhatsApp. That's how we work now. But B2B hasn't yet I mean, a lot of B2B sites have, but B2B hasn't yet harnessed all of the things that we need to do to connect better with our buyers and create an experience for them which is more aligned to them as consumers. And I think there's work to be done there, from moving away from, okay, well, the website is it's static, it's our shop window, and you know, when they really get to know us is when they talk to a salesperson. Well, everyone knows that about 70% of the purchase process is done before any of that ever happens. So we've got to make sure that the website is the best salesperson you've possibly got, whether that be just, you know, super useful piece of information that they can give them while they're not, you know, in the buying space, or educating them when they are.
That's a really nice point, just how you can make sure that whether the website in this case is for sales, whatever the purpose, it's trying to mimic or replicate or get closer to being more personable. And in fact, Kirsty, that leads me on to my next question, which is around personalization. If you've not already made a good case for it, why is personalization so important on your website?
Well, obviously, personalization is, you know, proven not just in the, you know, in the B2B space. It's proven in the B2C space right across every single channel. And, you know, back when I think about my time at the agency, I, you know, would preach to my clients, right, everything has to be segmented. We would, you know, we've got to talk to these verticals differently. These guys are further down the funnel, so they need a different message. These are the MDs, they need a different message to the sales director, etc., etc. Like, segmentation and personalization was key to driving success. And we would always get very measurable uplifts in the way that we would do that. We're kind of letting our clients down because we don't do that on the website, or we're not doing that on the website at the moment. So if you think about, you know, all the effort that we're going into these, you know, the personalized campaigns that we're running, we need to be replicating that same level of personalization on our website. And that's not because they want us to recognize them and say, you know, hi, Steve, welcome back, and get warm and fuzzy. It's like, we need to be making the experience more relevant for them, because they are busy. They don't have a lot of time. They want to make decisions quickly. And personalization for me is much more than the cute stuff. It is relevance and getting to the point and supporting your customers. So when I think about personalization now, obviously the first go-to for businesses is thinking, okay, well, how can I use that to acquire more customers? Totally get it. Like, relevance is a key way to do that. You know, you can think about the situation we're in now, and you can think about, okay, well, what would the challenges be for different types of businesses during this time? So industry segmentation is obviously very powerful for us to look at when we're driving prospects to our website. You know, if we're talking to someone in financial services, they're going to have a completely different need for our product or solution than perhaps someone in, you know, construction or manufacturing. So that's a really important use case to look at. We should also be thinking about our customers and how we can support our customers during this time. So I love, you know, some of the work that we've been doing with our clients, where we've been able to say, okay, well, let's look at your white space with your customer base. What else could they use right now that would support them during this time more than ever? And could you give them an offer on that? Could you give them something that is, you know, especially for them, look, for the next 2 months, we know this is going to be really useful for you as part of our solution mix, and we're going to give it to you for free. You know, thinking about identifying those audiences that you have and those customers in your base, and they go onto your website to log on to the tool or whatever, you know, find out, you know, something about a product or, you know, a query that they might have, and immediately they're served an experience that says, we know this is going to help you right now, and we're going to give you a special offer on it, or even we're going to give it to you for free for the next 2 months so that you can get the benefits of it right now. I think the customer level of personalization is really, really important during COVID. The stage of funnel personalization that our clients using is also really important right now, because a lot of clients have kind of halted in their journey through the sales funnel. So again, if they're not moving, how can we just give them good content that keeps them warm if they keep coming back? While we might not be able to drive them down, again, how are we being super useful for where they are in their buying stage? And then thinking about how the different sizes of businesses might want to communicate with you during this time, especially with, your own team perhaps performing in a different way. You might drive smaller customers through to like online demos and drive your larger customers or prospects through to talk to, someone in your sales team. So there is so much you can do with personalization, which just makes businesses' life easier. And I think that's what we're missing out on with our B2B buyers is, we're aiming to do it in every other way. And then they go onto the website and it's almost like this deflation of like, really? Like, I'm the same as everyone else. I have to go and find my industry, my case studies, my proof points. Think about the industry personalization. I love the fact that, clients are able to say, look, here's 10 other logos of businesses that we worked with that look like you. And here's a piece of content that 20% of our customers in construction really, really loved. That is great experience because it's based on, I can help you right now to make your life easier. And hopefully you'll choose me, but you've had a great experience along the way.
It's funny, Kirsty. It's so obvious when you're listening to you talk about it that it's that big gaping hole in the marketing process, as you say, whether it's ABM and you're targeting one-to-one, all the way back to slightly more broad mass marketing. We spend a lot of time and energy on personalization and relevance. And as you rightly said, sending me a message that says "Dear Steve" or "Hi Steve" when I pop up on the website sounds a bit cutesy. And to be honest, I know my name. I'd be much more interested as a buyer.
Yeah.
Describe that. Get me to the good stuff quicker. So we do all that work to almost tailor and personal shop people all the way through the store. And the moment they get to the till, they forget their name or they treat them like any other customer. And that's the parallel for web. Is what you're saying is it gives people the chance to the experience from that potential customer side. But equally, what you're saying is sounds like it just makes a business from a sales and marketing point of view much more productive and perform better by giving people what they want. It's a win-win, surely.
It is absolutely a win-win. It's you'll hear Gartner, you'll hear Forrester talking about the power of personalization, and one of the stats that I love is that 71% of B2B buyers say that their website is the most powerful touch point when they are buying, because the truth is, whatever you buy, whether you're in an RFP process or you're buying something, you will always go to the website. And to have then let's think about it. So you've got top salesperson talking to you through all these campaigns, these emails, and we get you and we know you. And then you go on to exactly as you described, like about to check out, go onto the website to check them out. It's like, hey, who are you? We don't remember anything about you. And it translates into results. And
the personalization bit's interesting because actually what you described, you can get very micro, one message to one business. But I guess for anyone that's new to this, it's not, you mustn't miss, as you've described, you can do it at a more industry level. So if somebody comes onto your site and is from a particular industry, it doesn't need to be at one-to-one level to be personalized, or if we expand it out, to be really relevant to the people that are coming onto your website.
Yeah, 100%. That would always be the place that we would advise clients to get started, because that is where you're going to have the biggest impact. And obviously you can create one-on-one ABM-based experiences and measure the engagement with those businesses. But by creating industry-based personalizations at scale, you can very easily measure success. So we always encourage clients to set these up. Obviously look at, okay, what are you going to personalize? The most important things, the image, the headlines, the content, the links to the types of content that you've got on there, the proof points in terms of, logos, case studies that you've got for their industry. And where we're seeing clients doing that really well, this is a stat that I literally get about, is the average uplift in conversion is 438%.
Wow.
And again, it goes back to I suppose I'm going to reference the talk I did last week. It's the help me personalization that's the powerful bit, and doing that 50% split test. So we always say, I know every client gets super excited about wanting to do personalization. Like, yeah, we'll just do it to everyone. We'll say, no, do 50-50.
Don't forget your control.
At least for the first, month and a half, until you see where you are and you've got enough traffic to make it statistically valid. And so they can actually measure directly during exactly the same time period what they're getting. And then they can go into ABM experiences, but you can select the clients that you want that to do that to. And that can actually not just be at acquisition level, but it might be pipeline. It might be a customer that you're in proposal with that, or you've done an RFP for that, again, God, you've gone to town on that RFP with this big financial services business, and they go to check out your website and it's like the same. You can create an experience there that reflects all the information that they asked you about in RFP to kind of reinforce this is why you should work with us. Or, you spoke to Paul last time, here's a great piece of content that he thought would be useful for you. That's really powerful. But the at scale personalizations is where you're going to get your biggest return, because you can start to talk to an audience, in a way that's really relevant for them straight away.
Fascinating stuff, Shane. And as ever with Kirsty, it's not just about good thought, it's measurable good thought as well. Some really, really compelling numbers on why, not just technology for technology's sake, but how these sorts of technologies, whether it's personalization through something like Webio, whether it's chat, whatever it is, the important thing to remember is, can you prove the value of it? Does it help you do more? Does it help you do more with less?
I think to that point at the moment, all of the people listening to this are taking a hard look at their budgets and need to make some tough decisions about, what's going to be marketing in the future and what's going to make it up and what they invest in and what they cut. And to me, these are both really good examples of something that you can pilot, you can test, you can build the evidence, and you can show it makes a difference relatively quickly. And I think that's why people are turning to tools like this. They're making the business case very quickly and turning them on in order to drive that revenue, because that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's always worth remembering that you've got to have your house in order as well. So as Joe said, when he talked about conversion, you've got to have the right kind of quality of product as well. If you've not got the decent quality product or service, you can optimize the hell out of things, but you still aren't going to necessarily sell what you need to. And of course,
that's a lovely point about the product. Yes, Steve, I'm jumping in there because
sure.
You just reminded me that, one of the things on the customer experience course we were talking about this week is this fundamental challenge for so many B2B marketers, particularly about having been so long being driven by selling products, selling service lines. And actually, that just seems really old-fashioned in today's world. So how, when somebody, lands on your website and you've maybe got a product line of 16,000 products, if you're a manufacturer, how do you take them straight to the right one? That's the contextual relevance that I think is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. That ability to filter back in. I think there's so much potential for the technology, and I've been involved in technology for a long time, 20 plus years of marketing technology, or as a marketer having to wrestle with technology, to be more precise. But I've never been a fan of technology for technology's sake. But certainly you can see that the business case for using these tools to help improve what you've got in tougher times. And also practically, Shane, if you have got, as a lot of organizations will, staff that are not available to you, they've been furloughed perhaps, or worse, the technology gives you a bit more scale down that front as well.
I agree. I mean, it's asking that really important question: what problem does it solve? This technology, if I bring it in, what problem does it solve both for my business, but even more important, and we're talking about customer experience, what problem does it solve for my customers? How does it make it easier for them? How does it help them?
Okay. And actually, Shane, maybe that's a good place to wrap on the subject of experience, because our audience, well, if it's anything like the weather that you and I are staring out on now, it's a very sunny day. They may well enjoy our podcast, but they may well enjoy a happy, sunny Thursday more. And if I may, rather than saying just thank you to you, Shane, and to Kirsty, but particularly to Joe, because if I'm going to be really personalised for the day, I do understand via LinkedIn it's Joe Bush's birthday. So from Shane and I, happy birthday to Joe. And to the rest of you, thanks ever so much for listening.